I think it just came. That was nice.
ASMR. Mana Flood ASMR. That's probably good. The most authentic ASMR experience. Get your tongue in there. Ooh, ooh. Like the whole time you're making like the Zoolander face, like.
I was real close. Like, I need to stop this now, or else I'm gonna fucking.
It's going everywhere.
Oh, that shit fucking hurt.
I bet. I have to burp now. Oh, that was a lot of power.
Hello and welcome to the Mana Flood podcast, the only podcast where the boys decided a hand with 5 lands, an arcane signet, and a soul ring was a good enough hand to start. Get your floaties ready because the episode starts now.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Mana Flood podcast. We've been putting this episode off for a while because research episodes are hard and we are lazy. So here we are. It's the long-awaited, much-asked-for Mono Blue. It's the second episode in our series of What the Colors Do. And
Yeah.
and the second color going in Wooburg order, so white, blue, black, red, green, is U, which is blue. It is the U because it is the first letter in the word blue that is not also shared with the word black. There it is. That's the secret.
It's a secret sauce.
That's boom. Now you know magic. You can go beat all your friends.
Yep.
Take those skills to the bank or wherever you take skills and cash them in. I am from the Flood. You can find me on X. You can find me sometimes on Twitch. It's been a long time since I've streamed. I still like to plug my Twitch because maybe one day we'll go back. If we ever do anything live with this channel, that's probably where you'll find it. So maybe preemptively go take a look there. I don't know. And the wonderful gentleman beside me here.
I am Parmesan. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Parmesan TV.
Right on. A couple shout outs. I would love to say a huge thank you to Nom Honey for recording that wonderful intro that you hear before the show starts.
Yes, and a big thank you to our friend Ozzy. They did our shiny, not really new anymore, but our shiny logo. They have a bunch of artwork. You can go find them at The Stars Have Eyes. They're on Instagram. Check out their artwork. They also do commissions if you're interested in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have your own channel and you need artwork, reach out to them. They do an incredible job, as you can see from ours. I guess getting right into it, we will keep it kind of divided the same way that Mono White was divided. If you remember all the way back to that episode, that was our second episode or something. It's been a bit. We're more than halfway through season 1, and we're gonna try to get more of these out a little bit faster than we have been. But again, these research episodes take some time, so we gotta put in the effort to hopefully get a lot of research on top of our school schedules and our work and volunteer schedules. So we're trying, I promise. Except he's falling asleep over here. Holy, this guy.
caffeine hasn't kicked in yet.
Yeah, I know it will, and then you'll be like bouncing and vibrating beside me. It's gonna be sick.
So on today's news,
In today's news, the color identity for Mono Blue. The color identity for Mono Blue is pulled from islands. When you think of an island, you usually think blue. Maybe that's because I'm a Magic player. But yes, the mana is pulled from islands. The concepts that the blue embodies within the lore are logic and technology. And the allies for blue are white and black. And the enemy, and you can actually see the allies. We said this in our last episode, but if you flip the card over, if you look on the back, the ones that are beside the color you're looking at are the allies. The ones across from the color you're looking at are the enemies. So it's really interesting to see, really cool that you can see that. And on that topic, the enemy of blue is red and green, which I always thought blue and green would be friends, but playing the game, it actually makes a lot of sense why they don't like each other.
Sure.
Green's like, I want to play big things, and Blue's like, I don't want you to play big things.
Well,
so
how about you don't?
Yeah, could you not? That would be great for me personally. Okay.
Yes. And then according to the wiki, so to speak, Blue has a much slower game plan due to it kind of wanting to collect information about the other people in the game, and then from there going ahead and making a decision or planning out even like a response. So
yeah, and you can see it with like the counter spells and the very blue is kind of designed to be a lot more strategic. Mm-hmm. It feels like in its gameplay, and for a very, very long time, blue was the single strongest color in Magic the Gathering. Research and development has been doing a lot better at balancing the cards in recent years, but for a very long time, blue was incredibly oppressive, and playing against monocolored decks, blue was always the one where you're like, and to a point, it still is.
Yeah, very much so. Blue also, like, kind of adding to the whole game plan thing, I think they very much focus on manipulating time, almost, if that makes sense. Kind of taking their time on turns, making sure they've made like the necessary assessments, whether it be threats on the board or like, is this person winning or are they losing, more or less. And once again, just the whole like collecting information thing. Yep.
And like in terms of lore, you think of Jace, that's kind of his
quite
shtick.
Literally.
Yeah. So if you're looking into the actual lore of the game, blue is very much manipulating the time and the information. Blue magic, that's what it does. It counterspells. It goes back in time and it's like, no, you don't get to cast that spell. Not quite how counterspell works, but you get it. You see what I'm trying to do? I mean, there's extra turn spells there. Although there's also that in Eldrazi. But still, we're talking about blue. Emrakul.
All right. I forgot about that.
So it's not really extra turn. No, I think there's an Emrakul that gives you an extra turn, isn't there? I know it takes opponents' turns.
Anyways. I don't know enough about Eldrazi.
Eon's Torn. The banned one. Gives you an extra turn on cast.
Yes.
Yep. I'm not talking just out of my ass. Got lucky. Okay. So we got some stereotypes for people who focus solely on blue, and we know a couple of people like this in our playgroup. And I may or may not be one of them, but blue players are seen as absolute bastards, sweaty tryhards, and probably playing CEDH on the regular.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate.
It's like, oh, you're playing blue, you sweat? Fuck you.
Yeah, people that tend to play... Well, they really just use blue for control. Mm-hmm. Sweats, very much tryhards. They as a kid, they like playing solitaire in their spare time. Mm-hmm. They probably play Lugia.
Oh, that's a very specific Pokemon deck.
Yu-Gi-Oh! That's what I was trying to say. That was rough.
That was tough, my guy.
They're cowards.
Yep.
Cowards. They hide behind counter spells. Mm-hmm. They kind of sit there. They're not the threat. So you're like,
You go to throw a punch at them, and they go, "I don't fucking think so." And
Yeah,
counterspell. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like, bro, take the punch
I'm
like a
gonna
man
swing at you with
or woman.
a Glistener Elf. It's a 1/1 infect. Scary.
In fact, very scary.
Them to swing at you with the Glistener Elf. They're gonna be like, how about you don't?
Get fogged, get counterspelled. You don't get to buff that Glistener Elf. Why don't I just kick you in the balls from under the table? Like,
That's a
Blue.
nice elastic band you have on your wrist.
yeah, blue players.
Yeah.
They're despite the fact that the color is supposed to be the intelligence comer. Oh my god! Oh,
Yo, we are not doing good
my
today. Oh my god.
goodness. Today is a shit show. Okay, despite the fact that blue is supposed to be the intelligence color, I swear to God, blue players are way too fast and loose with their counter spells. They'd rather play the card than save it for the opportune moment. Right? They're like,
Oh, for sure. For sure.
blue players are also like the worst at threat assessment. Which is funny because it's like the strategy one, and like every blue player I've ever met is just shit at threat assessment, and they're like, oh no, counterspell. That's a I can't think of the card that's not powerful at the moment. Soul Ring's powerful. That's an arcane signet, counterspell.
Literally.
There we go.
Anything that seems mildly, and I do mean mildly threatening. They're like, actually, I'm gonna counterspell that.
Yeah, like they'll let the Soul Ring go through, but then counter the arcane signet that you
Yeah.
cast with the Soul Ring. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, they also blue players tend to have, whether that it's just mono blue or like a color combination that has blue in it. They have surprise combos, and by surprise combos, I mean surprise combos only to them. Everybody else at the table is like, oh wow, no way, dude. As the blue player goes, I'm gonna play Isoquan Scepter and imprint Dramatic Reversal. I have infinite mana now. It's like, congrats, bro.
But also, it will be a like total surprise to them because they'll be like, okay, I'm gonna play Isoquan Scepter, and then I'm gonna play what'd you call it? What was the card?
Dramatic
Reversal. Oh, I'm doing great. And then I'll play Dramatic Reversal, and then they'll be like, wait, is that a combo? What? And then everyone at the table like, yes, it's a combo.
I definitely did not plan that at all.
And like they're like surprised at their own, like their reaction of surprise to their own combos is actually kind of cute, but you're also like, I hate you. You play mono blue. Get the fuck off of my table.
Especially when they learn they can like infinitely loop Archaeomancer to bring stuff back from the graveyard. They're like, wow, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah, we don't. I have a mono blue deck. I'm dumb as a stump. I fit the stereotype. But first time I got Bruvac Maddening Cacophony off, I was surprised. I put that in there for that exact reason. It was the win con. I was surprised. I went, what the fuck?
While I don't own one yet, I'm building a mono blue deck. It's much different. I promise.
It's
really.
not that blue deck.
I mean, like,
does it have counter spells and toxic win conditions?
Yeah, but
it's that blue deck.
It's centered around artifacts, actually.
I don't think anyone cares.
They don't.
It's mono blue.
They don't care. They don't care.
It's like going, yeah, well, I play a mono blue artifact deck. That's not toxic or CEDH in any sense of the word.
That's like somebody throwing out like a Sithis deck and then being like, oh, it's not stacks, I promise. It's like, we don't care.
It doesn't need to be. Like, oh my goodness. Okay, we'll just kind of keep moving on. I feel like we're just flying through this, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just going crazy and gaslighting myself. However, what the color does best, it is the most common color for counterspells.
Yes.
You think counterspell? The card counterspell is blue.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's kind of a dead giveaway right there, right? So, yeah, that one's
blue also is really good at having those like stealing effects. So taking control of like your opponent's artifacts, their creatures, mostly everything on their board. Mostly everything. But yeah, if you're playing against somebody that's using blue, just be prepared. Your stuff might get stolen.
And just if you're not okay with that, if you're playing with some expensive cards, tell them before the game and go, hey, look, if you guys are playing thief decks, you can't touch my cards. These are worth like a semester's worth of tuition. I'm not letting you touch these. I'm sorry, I don't know you. And that's, people can get offended all they want. That is a very valid reason for you to not want people touching your cards.
Yep, for sure.
Like, these are expensive, and if people are playing steel, like a $50 thief deck into your like couple $1,000 deck, get fucked. You're not touching my shit.
Yeah.
We have very different views on what our deck means to us and how much it's worth.
Yep, so. Exactly, man.
Yeah.
Blue is also really good at kind of going off the whole stealing thing, but again, not really. Mimicking like your opponent's effects.
Mm-hmm.
So like target what have you becomes copy of target creature, artifact, whatever until end of turn, or like till it leaves the battlefield, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Like we were talking about it earlier today, and I'm completely blanking on the name. Sakashima, Thousand Faces.
I think so.
Yeah, it'll be up in this general area. That card, very blue. It just mimics a card, gets rid of legendary status. Very fun.
Oh yeah.
But blue is also super good at milling, and this makes sense because in lore, your deck is just like the size of your brain, roughly. If you run out of cards and you can't draw, you have no brain left and you die to mental damage.
Sure.
that is literally the lore. At least the lore the way I understand it, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
It makes sense that blue can melt your fucking brain.
Yeah.
Because of everything it does, because it's the intelligence one, it can overload you with intelligence, take away intelligence, right? So it makes sense that it's the mill color. And like
100%.
You can mill in like black and other colors as well, but blue is the best color for milling and the most prominent.
Yeah, even in like lore, quite literally Jace.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the memory mage, more or less. He goes, oh, that's a nice memory. Yoink.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
That card is now essentially in exile face down.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is what that would be. In terms of gameplay, relating that to gameplay, if he steals a memory, he took a card out of your deck, put it face down, exiled, and now he can play it whenever he wants.
Yeah, literally.
Right. And that is a very blue mechanic.
Truly
Just in
is.
general.
Yes. Blue also has, not all, but I would say the vast majority of shape-shifting creatures, or even creatures that are able to switch creature types.
Yep.
It's very well known for that. For those of you who may not know, the shapeshifter mechanic is basically this creature is every type of creature.
Mm-hmm.
Eldrazi, goblin, gamer, robot,
balloon.
Oh yeah, right.
It's a real creature type
Duskmourn.
Now. Yeah, thanks, Duskmourn. Now we have balloon creatures. They are terrifying. Yes, the shapeshifter cards. With that, and cards that change creature type. For whatever reason, when you said that, my brain immediately went ninjutsu. Ninjutsu, I know. I think every color has some form of ninjutsu, but it's primarily blue-black. And we'll talk about that when we get to the blue-black episode. But, yeah, ninjutsu, the shapeshifter, that's blue.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of shapeshifters in the ninjutsu decks, and that's why.
There's quite a few.
Yeah. So moving right along, blue, I don't know if other cards can do this now, but blue is very good at returning permanents to hand. I think white might be able to as well, but
maybe a little bit, but
not to the extent of
no.
blue.
I still think it's predominantly blue.
Yeah. And blue is just it's the control card. It's the best card at just controlling the board state, the state of the game, and it's why so many people hate playing against it if they don't like playing blue, because blue slows down the game about as much as a farewell. Just having a splash of blue in your deck can slow the game down as much as someone playing a farewell. depending on when the farewell is played, but it slows the game down a lot more because it does exactly what the game plan says. It slows the game down. It's much more strategic. And now you have to try to bait out their counter spells before you play your big scary things. For instance, say you've got a Primordial Hydra in hand and you're playing green-white, and for some reason you're playing Big Stompy. Whatever. So you throw out a Smothering Tithe to bait out the counter spell. So you can play your Primordial Hydra and let him get big. Right? You wouldn't have had to do that. You could have spent all 4 of that mana and Smothering Tithe into the Primordial Hydra to create more counters if you weren't playing against someone who may or may not have a counterspell. They've got 2 mana open, or they have free counterspells, so you're just like, oh, let's do this just to be safe.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, it gets... Yeah, it slows the game down, which is... Yeah. It's not a bad thing. It does make for interesting gameplay. There's lots of interaction, but you have to be ready for it. If you're not ready for someone to be playing blue, if you don't have the kind of interaction to interact with the blue player, it feels like they can run away with the game.
And I also find this kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent here. My bad.
That's all right.
But a lot of new players, myself included when I was new, we are very afraid of interaction at first. I feel it's a little new, especially when coming over from other card games, like Pokemon, Lorcana, whatever, right? You play your turn, and your opponent generally doesn't do anything on your turn until it's their turn. Obviously, Magic is a little different in that obviously they can counter your stuff on your turn, they can draw cards on your turn, they can tutor for stuff on your turn. There's a bunch of stuff they can do on your turn. And I would say for new players, don't be afraid of interaction. Interaction's nice. Run interaction yourself.
Yeah, you have to remember there are certain deck strategies that are 100%. I don't want to play anything on my turn. I'm only doing shit on my opponent's turn, like flash decks, stuff like that. It is a very valid strategy to not play the game on your turn except for land drop go.
Truly,
it's a very valid, very strong strategy. It's probably one of the strongest strategies in casual to just not play things on your turn, because then people don't know when you're going to play it.
Yeah.
So they can't budget for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? You can't budget for a counterspell if you don't know when you're going to need it or if you're going to need it. Right? Because it might just go a full turn cycle and you didn't do anything because you had nothing in hand, but they don't know that because you have all your mana up and access to flash, and they know you've got flash, they know you've got counterspells. It's terrifying playing against a deck that only flashes things in.
Yes, very terrifying.
Yeah.
Another thing Blue is very good at. I know, right? So much. The audacity.
Yeah.
But Blue is also very, very good at tapping and untapping permanents. Untapping, I find it's generally in the form of your mana rocks. Getting extra mana, infinite mana sometimes. And tapping permanents down, such as your opponent's creatures.
Yeah.
Their lands, all that stuff. Putting stun counters on them so they don't untap during your opponent's untap step. Don't do that.
Tapping people's lands and then putting a stun counter on a land is toxic. You should feel bad.
I'm looking at you, Hilda players.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Shout out to Cody.
Yep. Yeah, that is horrific. That is so mean. Yeah. Valid strategy.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's great when your opponent can't really do anything. But as somebody who, gets a stun counter on their creature, even if it's just a land or elves, man, that's so detrimental.
I see red. I am coming for you and I will kill you as soon as I can. In game.
We do not condone violence.
We had a whole episode on that last episode.
Yep.
So if you haven't seen that, go check it out.
Don't do it.
But finish this episode first, then go check it out.
Challenge them to Smash Bros. But don't actually assault them, please. That's not good.
Yeah, no. But yeah, and the last thing that we decided Blue was good at, if we missed anything, let us know. But the last thing that we decided Blue was really good at was it has a lot of evasion and stealth mechanics. So ways to get through. Island Walk, sure. There's a walk of each type. You don't see nearly as much Forest Walk. You don't see that much Planeswalk.
No.
Planeswalk! I said the thing! Oh my goodness! But you don't, you see a lot of Island Walk and a lot of Swamp Walk. Those are the two I'd say you see the most of. Mountain Walk, I don't even know if it exists. I'm sure it does, but like
I think there's like
a card.
I know I've definitely seen it before. I'm pretty sure at least, but
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
I
I've
don't know
seen
what that
it.
card is.
Yeah, right. Like you see a lot more of the blue with ways to get around, unblockable, and not big unblockable, little unblockable guys that can just go pop,
Beep boop.
chip damage, right? And they have evasion. There's spells. There's a lot of bounce spells.
Yep.
And just it's blue. That's a very blue thing.
Mm-hmm. Like we are, I would say we're complaining about it probably, but we are also just as guilty. We play blue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
Bruvac. It only comes out when I'm trying to be the unfun guy at the party because it's time to go home. That's when blue comes out. That's when Bruvac comes out. I love that deck. It's not my favorite deck. It is literally just someone's being a jerk at the table, and I want to hard focus anything they try to play and make them rage quit, or I want the game to end quick, or I just want quick high power game. It's a control deck, as in control people's attitudes, because a lot of people like to come to the game and be kind of jerks.
True. Unfortunately, that does happen
Quite a bit.
sometimes more often than not, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm. You get a lot of people, especially when you go to an LGS, and you don't know people and they don't know you.
Oh,
They
yeah.
will come and they will just be the biggest pricks, and you'll be
Yep.
like, "Why, dude? I just want to play Magic and make friends."
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you'll show up, and I'll be like, "John, what am I playing?" And he goes, "Man, so and so's here today. Play Bruvac." And I'm like, "Okay, sure, whatever."
I also need to mention our LGS is mostly pretty good. I love most of the people there. They're awesome.
That is
But
true.
such as like every LGS and every, I would say, community that you can be a part of, right? There's a couple of bad eggs,
Mhm.
Not naming any names, of course, but yeah,
And we are in a couple of local LGS playgroups. And as with anything where you don't know everyone and everyone there isn't your close friend, you're going to get some people that are kind of jerks about the game. It's usually not a problem because we're quite large, but you still get the people who get all aggressive when they lose, or they go, "That's bullshit, man." We had that at the school, actually. That was very funny.
we had that at the school.
Yeah, when I don't know how to explain this without dropping names. So
Is there something that you can say that I will get that relates?
someone borrowed a deck from one of our friends, and then our friend beat him with a blue combo, and he had a ton of life, and he didn't expect to lose, and he got very upset.
This could be a few people. Damn
Yeah.
it.
Oh.
Ah.
That was a subtle thing, and I hope that worked out. But
Wow.
Yeah.
I completely understand.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I heard about this. Yes, okay. Know exactly who that is.
It was very funny.
I'm a scap.
It was very funny.
Dude.
I was there, so I was able to just be like, "Hey, fucking knock it off." But it was funny that it
Chill,
happened.
dude.
So yeah, that's a thing. It can happen. It can happen anywhere.
Yep.
We have two LGSs that we're part of, as well as our school play group. So we play a lot of Magic because, I want to play a lot of Magic, so I find ways to do that, and I know not everyone can. So yeah.
Yeah.
That was one hell of a tangent.
Wow. Yeah. Up next, I suppose. Yes. Not
Yeah.
suppose. Definitely up next.
What
My
the
bad.
color does worst?
Well, yes. What it does worst. Blue, shocker, doesn't do a lot. I can't English right now. Does most things pretty well, I should say. However, there are things that it does not do very well at all. One of those things is ramp.
Mm-hmm.
It does not ramp well.
Mm-mm.
They're high tide. It's for like one turn.
Yeah.
What else? Sure, I guess like Isochron Dramatic Reversal, but like
But that's a combo,
combo.
and one of the combo pieces is an artifact.
yeah,
So
literally.
that's not really blue.
Excuse me. So yeah, I guess it very much struggles with ramp.
Yeah. It really does, because all of the blue ramp that immediately comes to mind is all artifacts.
Yep.
Every single one.
Yep.
So it's like, that's not great. There's one creature that like reduces blue pips, or there's a couple that reduce blue pips, but like,
Even then, it's not
reducing
ramp.
blue pips isn't. It's good.
It's very good.
Just
But,
it's not.
yeah.
When it costs like 5-6 mana, it's not the greatest ramp. So
Yep.
yeah. Blue's also really bad at permanently dealing with things. Like, it does have a couple of cards that will just kill things, or turn them into frogs or what have you. Elk, is that green? I think that's green. Anyway, yeah, it turns. Blue has some permanent removal, but it doesn't have a lot of it. For the most part, if you want to remove something that isn't a land, you're going to want to bounce it back to hand and then counterspell it when they try to play it again. But even that's kind of like, that 2 cards you're down just to get 1 threat off the board. It's not the ideal color for removal.
No.
Right? Once something's actually on the board, blue doesn't do a whole lot.
Yep. Blue can also be pretty weak against discard effects.
Mm-hmm.
Blue, I find, has often, more than not, has a hard time. Getting stuff back from the graveyard. Especially, let's be honest, most blue players love their combos.
Mm-hmm.
Combo pieces are getting discarded, whether it's a mill or like somebody makes you discard something from hand. Generally, they have like no way of getting that back. I can only really think of one card off the top of my head, and that's Archaeomancer, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, aside from that, not great against anything that discards.
Yeah, and blue is all about playing its spells, and then they go into the graveyard afterwards. But if you put them into the graveyard before they can be played, just watch. The blue player is going to get pretty mad. They're going to go, I can't get them back, man. Come on. Like, there's Snapcaster Mage.
Yep.
That's the only thing that really comes to mind. Like, and that's because it was huge a couple years ago. Everyone was like, oh my god, Snapcaster Mage, need it in every blue deck. And now it's just kind of like, it's there.
Better days, man. Better days.
When you needed 4 for your modern deck or whatever.
Yeah, mine are worth, well, not what they used to be. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I have one somewhere. I think it's with my tokens. It's just there. And I'm like, I took it out of Bruvac because more often than not, it was a brick in my hand.
That's fair, man.
So, and like, I should put it back in case my one combo piece gets milled and I have no way to get it back. And I'm just like, shit.
Oh dear.
I'm in trouble. Yes.
Meh.
Yeah, but yeah, that's blue's not particularly great against discard effects. It's also not great against creatures. It has the least amount of creatures of any of the color types, and that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at what the cards do, I don't think blue has the least amount of creatures. I don't think anybody was like, oh good heavens! Like, that's not a shock.
I can't play a creature-based blue deck. That's crazy.
The thing is, you can.
You can. You definitely can.
Yeah. There's enough you can build a 100-card commander deck. But
may I also suggest maybe incorporating another color?
Yeah. Like, I don't know, green. Green-blue? That's Simic?
Playkinen.
Is that Simic?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look at that. I'm starting to learn the colors. That's actually why we made this series. We want to get to the multicolors so that I can learn them and other new players can learn what they're called, and you can go, Simic is green-blue.
Still don't know the name for like the quad color combos. One's like Witch Mob, but I forget what one that is.
We'll get there in like 2 years.
Yeah.
We'll get there eventually.
Yes. And I would say the last thing that blue does the worst, and not really does, more or less deals with the worst. Any kind of like rush down or aggro deck, which like as you might be watching this, you're a newer player to Magic. You love aggro decks. Same, dude. Same. I'm thinking that's my worst nightmare. It's like it doesn't have to be, because yes, they can counter your stuff, they can control your board, but as long as you quite literally just keep smacking them,
there's nothing.
They're fine.
Yeah. And the thing is you can make an anti-blue deck that will never win a game, but it will shut down that blue player and eliminate them on turn 4. Right?
Yep.
Like, that's why blue's able to thrive really well in Commander, is because there's no super rush strategies that are like, hey, like we finished the game, like I kill one player in on turn 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, that's not something that thrives, because you can't. Because if you do that, you become the target and you have to be able to defend against the other players.
Yep.
But you can make a deck that's just like, you know what? Fuck blue. We're just going to kill them immediately and then scoop.
Yeah.
Like, it's toxic. That's a terrible thing to do. But you can. You can do that, and you can counter blue really, really easily that way.
Yeah. I think, in my opinion at least, the best deck to counter against blue is one that not only goes wide, but goes wide very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're talking like turn 3, turn 4, you have a pretty solid board state of just dudes that you can just
Elf ball.
Elf ball, any kind of like token deck. Although
fast token, like a red token deck,
Yeah.
like goblins. If you can get a hasty goblin deck, you win.
they're cooked. They're so cooked.
Mm-hmm. Like, not Krenko. Krenko is an incredible goblins deck, but it's a turn 4 goblins deck.
Yep.
Purphoros, God of the Forge, that deck. If you build that deck, that'll just fuck
That
blue
deck
players.
cooks.
Yeah.
That deck cooks.
And like any deck that hard focuses someone and deals a shit ton of damage before turn 5 to one person, that deck will fuck up blue players.
Yep.
Because they won't be able to come back with that low of a life deficit. They're just done. Right? And your deck, it might not win after that. It might be solo target, we fuck someone up. I mean, that sucks. That's so toxic. But you can do it.
Yep, for sure.
Just to stop. Like, if you've got a mono blue player who is constantly, and this is for like a newer player. If you have a mono blue player who's very experienced, won't help you learn the game, and is at every table playing their mono blue deck and never getting punished and winning every game, build a rush deck that just focuses them down, kills them, and then everyone else can play the game.
Okay.
And keep using it until they stop. Or until they play something that's not quite as oppressive as the blue, because the blue can't do a whole bunch about that particular play style without burning
true.
through a lot of their good spells and their good counter spells, right?
Yes, for sure. For sure, man.
Mhm.
Moving on next. The more popular commanders for blue. This one we're going to do similar to our mono white episode. We're going to go with the most popular commander, and then both Chase and I will go over our respective mono blue commanders that we have. To note, I don't have mine yet. It's a work in progress, but it will be done eventually. So the most popular commander is Urza, Lord High Artificer. It's an artifact deck. Urza is 2 blue. When Urza, Lord High Artificer, enters the battlefield, you create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token. With this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. You can tap an untapped artifact you control to add blue, which very good. And then you can pay 5 to shuffle your library, then exile the top card until end of turn. You may play that card without paying its mana cost.
And I would like to note, it's not particularly important. However, colorless is spelled wrong. There is no U. Because it's an American spelling. And we're Canadian.
We're Canadian.
Release Canadian cards,
Oh,
wizards.
yeah, bud.
Fuck, bud. Holy jeez
Holy
Louise.
jeez, they don't know how to spell.
What do we
there,
gotta
what?
do to get some Canadian
We
cards?
should take a rip down to America and teach them how to spell.
Oh, buddy, we're gonna have to give him a couple rounds at. I don't know where the thought was.
For those watching, the brain cell is
It's weak. The
Oh,
link
yeah.
between us
Oh,
is
yeah.
weak for the brain
Oh,
cell
yeah.
today. But yeah, Give us a Canadian set, please, with all the colors and the spellings. I think that would be
Universe
such
is
a
beyond NHL, please.
Oh my
Give
god!
it would be so bad,
And
but I would buy all of it.
And like, please make it a spoof set, kind of like you did with the Cowboys one. Please, I would be so okay with that. That would be so funny, right? And like, just like Mr. Hockey, that's a real hockey player, by the way. Mr. Hockey is Gordie Howe.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, like, we have these kind of ridiculous names for real life people.
Could you imagine? Sorry, going off on a tangent once again. But could you imagine Duretti, right? Mr. Goblin Man that's in a wheelchair in like a hockey sledge. That'd be so fire.
Brilliant.
Right?
Brilliant. I want to see like Teferi come to Canada and just get his ass beat at the local bar trying to beat two Teferi things. He gets into a fist fight outside the bar and just gets wrecked.
Give us Tiny Bones as a goaltender.
Oh my goodness, that would be so much
Excuse me.
fun. That would be so good. That's such a good set. There you go. We should be on the Wizards R&D team.
Or we should not be.
Nope. Don't give us that kind of power.
No.
It would get abused.
Oh, very much so, yes.
But yes, Urza Lord High Artificer is the most popular commander. That was a tangent. And it's the most popular because it is like I don't know if it still is. I haven't looked since I did this research, but for a long time, it was a very, very competitive CEDH deck.
I think it still is. I do believe it lost a little bit of gas due towards the most recent bans.
Mhm.
You know, not having Mana Crypt seems awful, and also not being able to get them out like turn 1, turn 2 with the Jewel Lotus also seems kind of not great.
Yeah, it's a big hit, right?
Yeah.
But especially because Nadu also got banned.
True.
Because Nadu was number 1 since release. Nadu was
Truly
number 1
since release, yeah.
and then yeah. So it's one of those things. I don't know if it's still super CEDH, and from the time we did this research, it might not be the most popular anymore because we did this research. This research was done the same day Mono White's research was done. It's been done for
supposed to have this out a lot sooner.
We were supposed to have this out so much sooner. However, a lot of drama happened within the Magic community with the bans, and we had a lot of ideas, and we really, these episodes are long and a lot of information, and we were like, I just want to goof around and make sure all this stuff works.
Yeah.
So now it works. We're doing Mono Blue, and yeah, so if it's changed, oopsie doopsies, you know?
Oops.
Big ol' oofta.
Oofity doofity doo, if you will.
Yeah, Urza Lord High Artificer is an artifact deck.
Yes.
Then it's chock full of tons of infinite mana combos. There's the Dramatic Reversal and Isochron Scepter, Hullbreaker Horror and Soul Ring, Rings of Bright Hearth, and Basalt Monolith. There are so many infinite mana combinations in this deck, and you just win with literally that one. Oh my god, Brain Cell, come back. I need you for a second. Walking Ballista. There we go. Infinite mana Walking Ballista, you win the game, right? And there's I don't even think that's the only win con. It's just
probably the most notable win con, I would say. Yeah,
it's the one thing you draw through your deck to get Walking Ballista, and then you win the game.
It's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You can play Walking Ballista for like however much. And then to disrespect, you can tap it with Urza for 1 blue mana and then kill them.
Yeah,
just to say I can do more things than you.
Yeah, like, hey, run interaction, tap, you're dead.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh my goodness, there's
deck is very I would say very like classic blue playing style for sure. Combos, control, lots of like untapping and tapping of your stuff, obviously, for that mana. Just a very like blue dot deck, if that makes sense.
Yeah, combos, control, counterspells.
Yep.
Like
Truly.
I needed another C word. I know counterspells falls under control, but like it's very like if someone's playing mono blue, there's not really a whole lot more mono blue than mono blue artifacts.
Yep.
Which is strange because it's artifacts, but you need the artifacts for like the ramp and all kinds of different things. So it makes sense, and it is a very mean mono blue control-y kind of deck.
Yep.
It's just classic blue. So many ways this deck can just go off, win the game. You've also got Blightsteel Colossus you can slap down, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's also back onto classic blue. Blue loves to draw cards, and lots of them. So you could be lame as hell, draw your entire deck, and lay down a Thassa's Oracle.
Mm-hmm.
Just know you're lame as hell.
Yeah, that is the stereotypical. That's such a boring blue win con at this point because everyone and their mother does it, and it's like, cool. Like a blue card that embodies blue very well is Rhystic Study. It's either card draw or stacks.
Truly,
right?
Yeah.
So it is just while it's on the field, it's very, very much control.
Yep.
You're either getting to draw your cards, or people have to spend resources to stop you.
True.
Which is annoying when they do it.
So annoying.
And it's like, stop paying the one, you son of a bitch.
I need you to stop that right now.
I just want to draw a card. Come on, I have nothing in hand. I only have one half of my win con. Let's go.
For real.
Yeah. So, and then we'll just go into what I have for my mono blue deck. And I think this might be a big surprise to anyone who's watched a lot of this, a lot of our channel. I run Bruvac the Grandiloquent, which at the time we researched this was ranked number 5 in most popular mono blue decks. Yeah, it's genuine nightmare fuel. If an opponent would mill one or more cards, they mill twice that many cards instead. Just doubles the mill. And anything old code words, anything that says put from top of library into graveyard, that is the old code for mill, so it counts as mill. And it is
it's spicy, that's for sure.
Bruvac's a son of a bitch, and he does not make many friends. He's a super fun deck. I used to have a lot of different kill one person win cons in there, where I would mill one person completely out, and I replaced those with tutors so I can find Maddening Cacophony, because I feel like it's not fun to get targeted and then wait for me to draw something else, whereas if I had just played a tutor from that instead and then win the game, we can go on to the next. So the combos in the deck to win, the win combos, they're not fun to begin with, but at the very least I can make it so that we at least all get to go, okay, GG next.
Yep.
Right?
True.
Because the only way to counter it, to stop me from winning, is with a counter spell, and I can 9 times out of 10 out counterspell you. Like, I have enough free counters, I have enough mana, I have enough reasons that I can just go, I don't think so, you don't get to counterspell me, I win the game, right? So it's not a deck that's fun to play against, and I've said this before, it's one of those decks where if someone's being a prick and they're, trying to be like, oh, I'm the best Magic player around, everyone else is trash, look at all these strong decks I build with my huge wallet, I pull out this deck. It's a very expensive deck. There's a lot of expensive cards in here. I pull it out and I just try to fuck their day, really. It's a deck built out of just pure toxicity. It was built to shut down a friend who was constantly winning through both just having better decks and not seeing that it was because they had better decks. They were like, no, it's just raw talent. And then I threw this out, and magically, after I beat them a couple times with this deck, every single one of their decks had like the Kozilek that lets you, if it goes into your graveyard from anywhere, shuffle your graveyard into your deck. I was like, oh, okay, sure. So I put in abilities and cards to get around that. But yeah, like if you have to put one card in there just to stop someone else's deck, fuck someone else's game plan over, you're the problem at the table. And if you do that, Like if you have them in hand and they're a brick, and you're like, fuck, I lose because they're in hand. It's not a good card to have in your deck, dude.
Very much so. Very much so.
I had a talk with the person. We're still friends. And I was like, cut that shit out. Like, this is genuinely being toxic. And we both play much less high-powered, toxic things at the table with each other now. So sometimes just having a conversation with someone works.
True. Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of, it's not a particularly long description. But the game plan for the deck is find Maddening Cacophony, play Bruvek, play Maddening Cacophony, and kick it. So Maddening Cacophony costs 6 now. And then every opponent now mills their entire library into their graveyard. On their next draw step, they lose. That's how the game works. That's how the game works with Bruvek. Very fun for me. Not very fun for anyone else.
That's
very,
fair.
very classic blue.
Yeah. For me, the deck I run, or will be running, I should say, is Leonardo da Vinci. That's right. Leonardo da Vinci from the Magic the Gathering All-Star set, Assassin's Creed. Yeah. Leonardo da Vinci is a 2 and 1 blue. 3/3. For 3 and 2 blue, until end of turn, Thopters you control have base power and toughness XX, where X is the number of cards in your hand. And then also for 2 and 1 blue, you may tap him, draw a card, then discard a card. If the discarded card was an artifact, exile it from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 0/2 Thopter with flying in addition to its other types. Not a ton to say about this deck. Lardic, oh my god,
We're doing great.
oh,
We're
we're not doing great today.
Professionals.
Professionals. Basically, the point of this deck: lots of card draw. Want to draw a lot of cards. Tons of cards. Tremendous amount of cards.
All of the cards are going in my hand.
And then you also get, with its Leo's second ability, you get to cheat out some expensive artifacts for free. And not only do you cheat them out, they become an Apache attack helicopter, which is pretty awesome. So you can do things like Simulacrum Synthesizer. It's from like the Big Score subset of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. A lot of other things you can do, like what's it called? I'm drawing a blank here. Give me a second. Basalt Monolith, Meteor Golem, any artifact you can think of, essentially. And then you just make all your Thopters bigger and go smack.
Attack! And then you kill.
Attack!
Yep.
And that's a very short description. But yeah, that is essentially what the deck does. There are things to untap and tap permanents, but that's mainly just to get multiple Leo activations with the second ability. And that's pretty much it.
Right on. So our next set is actually Staples. Oh, that's why. Okay, so it says Staples Business Depot, not a sponsor. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? I get the joke.
Very nice. Very
Good
nice.
job, past me. You got me.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay, so blue Staples. Counterspell. Nothing screams blue like Counterspell. They
True.
go,
True.
bop, Counterspell.
True.
That's a blue card.
Sure is a blue card. This next one, not really a blue card, but it's using a lot of blue decks, therefore it is a blue staple Business Depot. Reliquary Tower, taps for a generic. You have no maximum hand size.
Yep.
As I said in blue, you want to draw a lot of cards. You don't want to have to move to discard on your end step. Reliquary Tower makes it so you don't gotta do that.
Mm-hmm. And not including this in your deck can actually lower the power level. So that's it's a cheap way to cut power level in terms of like actual gameplay, not in terms of Wizards' new weird system. Yeah, it's not great. Okay, so the next one is also a land, and it is Mystic Sanctuary, which is kind of like a what? But it makes sense because it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more islands. It is a blue land island. It taps for blue. When it enters the battlefield untapped, you may put a target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library. So it's one of the few ways blue gets graveyard recursion. It's one of the few ways that you go ha 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 ha, ha and pull spells back out of your graveyard. How you get your win conditions back. Like if I have a Maddening Cacophony Milled, I do have a Mystic Sanctuary in Bruvac. It's
pretty solid.
It's a very strong spell for blue, and because of how many cards most blue decks draw, you're going to be getting access to that card this turn. So
hell yeah.
Yep.
The next one is Brainstorm. For 1 blue, instant, draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. Again, blue, you like to draw cards. Drawing cards is great. We're having a good time. Draw cards, you can maybe put 2 on top that maybe you aren't going to use quite yet. Or like, whatever you deem fit. And that's pretty much it.
Boom. Next to 1 mana, draw 3 cards, put 2 back. It's super just strong. Oh, goodness. We have scrolled all the way up by accident. There we go. Another blue staple, which is interesting because it's actually kind of newer, is actually Desynchronization. And that state, it's an instant for 2 and 2 blue to return each non-land permanent that's not historic to its owner's hand. So historic cards are artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. So it is a board wipe for... Yeah. Yeah. It is a very strong card that should go in almost any blue deck because you don't have a whole lot of board.
This was not in my Leo list.
And now it is.
Now it's going to be. That's very good.
That is a very strong card, and it's like the staples aren't necessarily something that should be in every deck. I don't actually know how much Desynchronization costs because the Assassin's Creed set is getting older and it's a rare, so it could actually be going up in price. But at the time, it was relatively cheap, like at the time of research. And now we're going to go into some of the more expensive staples.
Yes.
And I can almost guarantee you're going to have heard of every single one of these more expensive staples.
If you haven't, I'm going to be very, very surprised.
I would be shocked.
The first one leading with, to nobody's surprise at all, Cyclonic Rift. It is a 1 and a blue for an instant that states return target non-land permanent you control. Or sorry, nope, not that. Return target non-land permanent you don't control. There we go. To its owner's hand, or you can overload it for 6 and 1 blue. You may cast a spell for its overload cost. If you do, change target to each. So you quite literally look at the board and go boop.
Anything that's not land and I don't control, bye-bye.
Yeah, token decks cry when this card comes out.
Yeah, they do. It is brutal how
Yes.
strong that card is. And it's just... It wins so many games just for existing.
Oh yeah, truly.
Right? Like, and it ends the games for certain people just for existing as well, right? Like
Yep.
if you know someone's Teferi protectioning or whatever, and you make a deal with them, go, hey, don't attack me on my next turn, and I'll deal with that person's board state, and you do this, then when they come back in, they can just kill him, right? Or her. Right? It's a very
very
powerful card, and very good at helping with politics and whatnot. So,
Yes.
the next blue card, to absolutely nobody's surprise on our more expensive staples list, is Rhystic Study. I know, dude.
Crazy,
It's
absolutely
insane,
crazy.
dude.
I was not expecting this at all.
Nobody could have possibly seen the Rhystic Study, dude.
Excuse me.
Thankfully, that one didn't get banned. Oh my! Could you imagine?
The outrage would
How
be insane.
that would have been such a shit show on top of the other bands. Oh, yeah,
Yes.
that would have been
And we all
like,
would
as
have...
bad as it was. Oh,
Yeah, that would be not good. God awful.
that would have been bad for many reasons. My neck pillow is falling off. We're just
Okay.
going to sit like this. Nailed it. Like a glove.
Like a glue.
Oh, one brain cell. Yeah, so whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1 colorless mana. 1 generic mana. Which means all of their spells essentially cost 1 more.
Yep.
Very annoying, but very easy to deal with. This card gets out of control, though, when someone's gonna try to pop off on their turn and not pay for anything. I have seen so many people lose the game to that exact strategy. They're just not paying for Rhystic Study.
Because they don't...
They're like, I'm going to pop off. I win next turn. And then Rhystic Study players like, actually, you just let me draw and do a Cyclonic Rift. So I win next turn.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So don't... If you have just enough mana to pop off, know that you shouldn't try to pop off while there's a Rhystic Study on the board. Because it is too strong.
Way too strong.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those cards that if you get it... If you have access to blue... You should be putting it in every deck with blue, like to an extent.
Yeah,
right. Like there's some places where it's not good, but very few.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. Yeah. The next expensive staple we're going over to once again to nobody's surprise probably is Fierce Guardianship. Fierce Guardianship is, once again, another instant for 2 and 1 blue. If you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell. Very strong. It's a free counter spell, man. For non-creature, that's insane.
Yeah,
insane.
A non-creature counter spell. It's not usually creatures that you want to counter, anyways.
Yeah,
it's the pump spells. It's literally anything. Right? People can throw a 1/1 at you and expect you to block it and then try to pump it. Fierce Guardianship, boom.
Yep.
Like, oh, you were out of mana? Fierce Guardianship, I'm only down 1 card.
Literally. Yep. It's very strong, very strong.
Mm-hmm. It's a very, very good card. Doesn't cost resources, which we love. And then, I think this is our last section. It is our outliers. And I did a lot of research. I did a lot of looking when I was making this list, which again was a couple months ago. Things may have changed. But I felt like of all of the card colors, blue is very set in its identity of what it is and what it's trying to accomplish. I don't think there's a whole lot of blue cards that feel like they should be in another color. Right? Like we don't... If there was a card that was blue and gave a crap ton of ramp, I'd be like, okay, that goes here. But it doesn't really have that. It doesn't really have anything that doesn't go, yeah, that's blue.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's, I guess I've got a whole bunch of stuff written here. Like, because it was so strong for so long, it didn't really need any outlier cards. It didn't need, say, the ramp, because it was so strong in other areas. So Wizards never found the need to print ramp for blue, right? Because it can use artifacts well enough, and its stuff's not usually incredibly expensive, so it doesn't need the ramp the way green does, right? I spent like 30 plus minutes just looking for an outlier, and I found some weird cards, but they still felt blue.
Yeah, that's fair, man. Yeah, I guess like really looking at blue, they truly like did not need any outliers whatsoever, because like it does what it does well enough. And then like even for the more expensive stuff like you were mentioning, it has cost, like it's very good at cost reduction as well, whether it's for instant sorceries, artifacts. There's definitely tons of ways to make those a lot cheaper for you to cast. So
and like all of our expensive staples are just cards that do blue things very well.
Yeah,
truly. Like Cyclonic Rift returns things to hand. It doesn't remove them. It just sends it back to your hand.
Fierce Guardianship, free counterspell, non-creature spell.
And like we said, counterspell is a blue card, so there's nothing like blue is a staple. Counterspell, staple. And Rhystic Study, you either draw a card or stop people from doing things as efficiently as they want to.
Yep.
Very blue, very set in its identity as a card. So I'm gonna say that there are no outliers. And that's a very broad statement. If I'm wrong and you're like, no, this card feels like it shouldn't be blue, please let us know in the comments. I love seeing new cards and new weird things. or things that I didn't really perceive to be outside of blue's color identity. But if you find one and you go, no, that is not blue, this is why, please let us know.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
would love to see that. I think
Hell
that's
yeah.
really cool.
Hell yeah.
And like, it's probably super obvious, right? It's probably like, yeah, that's not particularly blue, but I can't think of it.
Neither.
Yeah.
Neither.
Like for red is going to be interesting because the big red outlier was Dockside Extortionist. That is now banned. So
Sure is.
we're gonna have to find a different one. Anyway, that's a different episode. We don't have
Yes.
to worry about that for now.
Not yet.
So I guess we'll just end this one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. As always, it means so much that we have people watching, and I have people approaching me and going, "When's the next episode coming out?" Or "You should do this," or "I want to see you guys start gameplays." They're coming. November. Which this is the Halloween episode, so I
Yes.
forgot. We both forgot costumes, but this is the
Yeah.
Halloween episode. November, so next month, very soon. Hopefully, you should be seeing our first gameplay upload. So hang tight for that. We have some fun ideas. Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully they're as fun in practice as they are in theory. We're gonna have
You're gonna see how good we are, but also how bad we are at this game.
Yep, how much shit we disturb.
Yeah. It's a little cursed at times.
It's super cursed.
Yeah.
I am From the Flood. You can find me on X, which is also Twitter. I hate calling it X. It feels so wrong.
Yeah.
But you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Twitch sometimes. I might try to start. If I get a lot of people go, dude, just stream. Then I'll start streaming again, I guess. But yeah, the wonderful gentleman beside me here.
Once again, I am Parmesan. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and X. I don't like that. But you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and X at Parmesan TV.
Perfect. And once again, a big thank you to Nam Honey for this wonderful outro that you're going to hear right now.
Thank you for listening to the Mana Flood podcast. Any references to companies or other content creators in this episode are done strictly out of love for the brand, as we are not sponsored. If you would like to contact us, our email is floodedmanapool@gmail.com, or find us on X at floodedmanapool. You can also contact the host directly at From the Flood or at Parmesan. Have a good day. Bye.